Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play QuackShot starring Donald Duck. In the last part we started off the game and got all the way through Transylvania, and from the map we got there we now have access to 4 new areas including Maharaja. Now this place is home to one of the most annoying enemy types in the game, snake charmers. And the interesting thing about their attack is that it can be avoided very easily by just standing behind one of these pillars because you're counted as a background element at that point. But what their attack is they'll use their flute to blow out a note. And if you get hit by that note, you are completely stunned until the snake they have hits you. So if you get hit by that, you're guaranteed to take damage no matter what. Helping them in their annoyance is that they're one of the few enemies in the game, and by few I mean 3, I think, that take multiple plungers to stun. They take 3 plunger shots to stun and get out of your way. So you need to be careful with them, stand behind the background elements when you can, and just spam fire.
Wow, this is the big Maharaja's palace. Donald Duck shouldn't have a voice the way he does.
And time for the back of the area. Hi there, you're regal looking. I offer you a challenge. If you can defeat the tiger in the garden, I'll reward you with this Sphinx tear. Alright. To the garden we go, and the garden's kind of weird. Barring Transylvania's Castle Dracula in it, this is the one area in the game that is very much a maze, in that there are, I think, 6 rooms, and in each of them are multiple doors with that room's number on it. You need to find the right pathway through the right numbered doorways to get to the boss fight. And you can be here for a while if you're not checking every pathway. Thankfully, just because of how the rooms loop into each other, you can go through a variety of paths to reach the exit. I'm just going with what I remember being the shortest way. A couple of the doors are hidden super well, but thankfully you don't need to ever use one of the super hidden ones. I believe it's as long as you reach this next door I'm heading to, you're completely fine. With that said, behind this door when I jump up here after I stop thinking about where I'm going, is easily the hardest boss fight in the game, to be frank with you. This is the tiger, who very much looks like Shere Khan from Jungle Book. The tiger takes, I think, between 4 and 6 shots to defeat, but you can only hit its face and while it's running at you or jumping. This means you can only hit it while it's attacking, and it's a very hard attack to dodge. Not to mention, it also has a fire breath attack, which does a surprisingly high amount of damage, and it's pretty fast. In the early portions of the fight, you can just duck under it, but towards the latter 2/3 of its health bar, it'll start jumping up to the upper layer, and it'll fire a homing fire shot, which the best way to avoid, I'd recommend, is just stand below it and then slide away once the fire attack starts happening. Getting hit while it's jumping, in my eyes, is almost an inevitability. So just slide under it when you can and try to do short hops while firing plungers to maybe hit it while it's jumping. It's a hard fight. I make it look kind of easy there, barring the death. It's not easy in any way. As I promised, I will give you the Sphinx tear. And we get the Sphinx tear. Cool. Take a guess where we need to take an item called a Sphinx tear. If your guess is Egypt, yes, you're right. There's no real joke here. Egypt is a bit of an area. I could recommend going through most of these maps at first just to get their checkpoints in basically any point in the game. But to be frank, I also don't see much of a point in that, just because I might as well get it done in as few trips as possible. With that said, this area is also a bit of an oddity in that this is going to be the last time I can think of from memory where the temper meter comes into play with the chili peppers and Donald Duck goes all apeshit. And it's one of the mechanics I feel like is just here because they wanted to characterize Donald's anger in some form, given his penchant for rage. But it just doesn't feel like it's a very well-used mechanic. If this was a thing in boss fights, wherein, say, you took enough hits during a boss fight, your temper would build and you would go super mode or something like that, that would be one thing. But as it is, this mechanic feels wasted. And here we are.
The door is closed and I can't go inside.
Well, if we use the Sphinx tier, we'll be able to go inside, because I guess this is supposed to be the Sphinx. Looks more like just a standard pyramid, but well. The back half of Egypt is deadly, but for different reasons than most places thus far. There's a lot more traps here than there are in the other areas, be it spike traps on the walls, moving walls that try to push you into said spike traps, and sometimes you need to use as platforms. And taking a note out of Zelda 2 / Castlevania 2, there are a couple of pathways that look like they're ceilings, floors, or walls, but they're pathways. So there's just no visual indicator that you can just walk through them. And more often than not, they're meant to be pitfall traps. Thankfully, due to the suction plunger, you can usually recover out of it. For instance, there's one right here that you jump up to, and I believe there's just some points up here. Yes. As long as you realize that one's there, spotting where these particular passageways are isn't too terribly hard. You just gotta keep in mind where the floor looks a little bit uneven, and you can easily tell, like right here. It's also always that particular texture, so you can, if it looks out of place, it's probably a hole. The biggest annoyances with Egypt's back half rather, come into play after we go through the next fade to black screen transition, as the place suddenly gets really gimmicky. Also, these floor spears are deceptively hard to dodge. Less so when you're going down, but whenever you're going up near them, it's dangerous. Now, the fire we saw back there, we're going to see it a lot more coming up. You might think you might be able to Mario 64 your way around it, just take some damage, you'll bounce up and damage boost through it. You can't. Fire in this game is essentially a bottomless pit. If I touch that, I am instant dead. Don't do that. And now they start having you platform above it endlessly, including falling platforms. Fun. The fire falling from the ceiling there is a bit more dangerous than you might think, as while their hitboxes are pretty small. The thing is, when you get hit in QuackShot, as you may have noticed by now, is you don't get knocked back like you do in other platformers from the era. You actively get stunned in place for a second. And there are some benefits to that over knockback, but when it comes to falling platforms, there's no way you can work just getting hit stunned like that to your favor, so you're probably going to end up dying there. Alright, for this section, we're going through a lot of tight hallways with fire following us. It'll follow you down, follow you to the right, and follow you up. With that said, just hold right. Never stop holding right, and you can get through this section no problem. This is the only place where you don't really need to hold right here, because you need to do the jumps up. But even when you get to the final fall coming up, keep holding right, because the game pulls a bit of a dick move that I like to call the Battletoads approach, where if you're not holding right, you're gonna fall into a fire pit and die. So hold right there. Otherwise, you have to do that screen over again. Alright, right here, we gotta keep in mind this note we got at last part. 1 sun, 2 moon, 3 star. On the floor here are panels of a sun, a storm, a star, and a moon. You need to press them in the order of sun, moon, star by jumping on them, otherwise, the extraordinarily fast-moving ceiling will crush you to death. But for doing that, we get the Scepter of Ra, our plot MacGuffin for this area. We'll need that as a key to act as another flag in the next area. Oh god, the ladder. So now we're in a minecart section, and this isn't too bad. There's only a couple of pits a la Donkey Kong Country here, but the thing that you need to note about them is whenever you try to jump out of the minecart, hold the direction you're moving, otherwise you'll get Sonic 4 Episode 1, in that your momentum won't carry with you. You'll just jump straight up, and then you'll die. Hold left to live. That's all there really is to it. With that, let's call the airplane, because now that we're done here in Egypt, it's time for us to head to our next destination, the South Pole. This might be one of the easier areas in the game from the start, as while there is some slight ice physics, jumping around nullifies that pretty well, similarly to other platformers of the era. Now, I was digging around for a little bit on the cutting room floor for this game. There's not much hidden in this game we don't know about. For instance, there is a free movement god mode that's hidden in the coding that you need and a pro action replay code to get. But interestingly, QuackShot does a check of your Genesis's region and will actively run in English or Japanese depending on what region it detects your Genesis to be. There's also some unused music and such.
It's a key frozen in ice, but how to get it out?
Well, in another reference to Indiana Jones, namely Raiders of the Lost Ark, use the Scepter of Ra, and it, I guess, directs the sun into the ice, melting it, allowing you to get the Viking key. With that, we're done in the South Pole for now, so we want to head to the last area we haven't been to yet on the map, the Viking Ship here at the far north. This area is a little bit weird, in that there's these barrels all over the place. As you can see, some of the Vikings are even hiding in them. You can destroy those barrels and it'll take out the enemy as well, but I honestly just don't recommend it because, to be frank, your ammo is better used on boss fights. Hell, I was even looking at some of the speedrun stuff off screen, and I realized that the speedrunners can do a lot of things in this game you're not meant to do. For instance, they skip the password when getting the Scepter of Ra. They just get over to the wall as fast as you can before the wall even stops or starts falling down. And just plunger up the wall. They also slide in ways you wouldn't think you'd be able to do because the slide works really well. And sliding into a pause buffered jump apparently gives a really good speed boost. When jumping, that is. With that said, the front half of the Viking ship, it's not really too dangerous. There are enemies, yes, there's a couple of bottomless pits, especially if you stand still on certain floor pieces. But as long as you keep moving, there's not much to fear in this portion of level. Not until we access the back half does it start getting a little bit dangerous. Speaking of which, here we are. Well, hello there. Please go inside the ship and get rid of the ghosts. Alright. If you're wondering why there's certain fade transitions at certain points throughout the game that aren't just me dying, they're either me checking my notes or stopping the recording there. Because there's certain places I wanted to make sure were their own fresh recording so I wouldn't have to redo a whole bunch of stuff if I messed up too hard. Now, the inside of the Viking ship is interesting in that it is a loop. You go around in a circle and you're just supposed to figure out where to go from there. We need to go through a hidden passageway in the center to get to the boss fight, but in here's also one notable enemy, a beefier member of Pete's crew. They're gonna run left and right and then flex, but after they flex, they let their gut out, and when their gut's let out is when you can hit them. With that said, to stun them, they still take 3 hits. I think the bubblegum ammo might take them out in 1 shot. Honestly, enemy stun in this game is a bit weird, because sometimes you stun enemies and their attacks also get stunned, namely with the bubblegum ammo on the final boss. With that said, it's time for the boss of this stage, the zombie, Viking, I guess, the ghost. This thing will swing its hammer all around. It'll go in almost kind of an infinity loop pattern, but you can easily get this thing into a stun lock by just doing a short hop into plunger fire the moment after it starts reassembling its body. I'll be real, I haven't seen this thing attack me in a while. It's arguably one of the easiest bosses in the game. The timing can take a little bit to get down, but as long as you're quick on your button presses, you shouldn't have to worry about much here. Also, gotta admit, the boss theme in this game, not a song I really like too much. That's a quick loop. Now, you can also just use popcorn and bubblegum ammo on this boss. Same with the tiger, even, in Maharaja. But I would like to save my ammo for things that are better used on it, if that makes sense. But that's it, I'm thinking back. Do I use special ammo on any boss after Duckula / Dracula? I don't think I do. The plungers here make sense because it gives me more time to set up my next shot, but yeah, well, I can't waste my time there, don't I?
I got rid of all the ghosts. Can I have the Viking diary?
I'm sorry, but to tell the truth, I don't really have it.
What?
But an old legend says that it is hidden in ice near the South Pole. Maybe this ancient Viking plunger will help you. I don't know why I went distinctly more Canadian there. It can be used to fly with by catching things that fly. The green plunger's a bit weird, but I'll talk more about it next part And with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, the rest of the game. See you guys then.